Back in 1939, the Pennsylvania Railroad unveiled what was supposed to be the shape of things to come for American rail. 140 feet of streamlined steel, the biggest steam locomotive anyone had ever built. It could break the 100 miles per hour barrier. It carried the hopes of the most powerful railroad in the country, and yet it ended up shut out of the very network it was meant to revolutionize. The crews who worked around it took to calling it simply the Big Engine. The S1 didn't stumble for want of muscle. It stumbled because everything surrounding it, every curve, every turntable, every yard, was simply too small to keep pace. On March 13, 1939, the doors of the New York World's Fair opened wide. Beneath the glow of the pavilion lights sat the Pennsylvania Railroad S1, shining, with a placard on its pilot that read, plainly, "The locomotive of tomorrow." Stretching past 140 feet, it outmeasured a blue whale and overran most city blocks, sprawling across the exhibition floor like something borrowed from the future. The streamlined casing Raymond Loewy had designed, sweeping chrome and confident curves, seized every onlooker's imagination. This wasn't merely a locomotive, it was a testament to American nerve, a pledge that speed and elegance could swallow any distance. Just getting the giant to the fairgrounds had been an ordeal in itself. Too large for the direct route, it had to be threaded over the Long Island Railroad, hauled backward by smaller freight engines, while crews temporarily stripped away third rail guards and other obstacles and crept past the rest at a crawl. Once installed, the S1 staged its own quiet performance. Perched atop a special stand fitted with rollers, its 7-foot driving wheels turned at a constant 60 miles per hour under their own steam, spinning generators that fed motors turning the wheels of the trucks and tender, every set matched to the same speed. Onlookers watched the rods smear into a blur and the pistons hammer away, the machine piling up close to 50,000 make-believe miles without budging an inch along any track. Youngsters mashed their faces to the glass. Engineers jotted observations, and journalists filed stories about the birth of a new age. Nearly 25 million people would pass through the fair across its 2 seasons, and many of them left having seen this one machine run tirelessly in place. During the long break between those seasons, the S1 was quietly slipped back onto the railroad for real passenger duty and road testing, then returned to its pedestal when the gates reopened, as if the intermission had never happened. Its tender wore the words American Railroads instead of Pennsylvania Railroad, a badge of national pride, because 27 Eastern railroads shared the exhibit and the S1 stood in for them all. During those months, it amounted to something larger than a train. It was optimism forged in steel, daring the world to picture what railroading might one day be. Yet, beyond the fairgrounds, the genuine trial still lay ahead, on rails laid down for a wholly different tomorrow. To understand why the S1 grew so enormous, you have to understand what it was trying to solve. By the late 1930s, the Pennsylvania Railroad wanted a passenger engine to retire its aging K4's Pacifics, a machine that could match the performance of its sleek new GG1 electric locomotives and drag a 1,000-ton train at 100 miles per hour without help. That was a tall order for a single steam engine, and the answer the designers reached for was the duplex drive, a concept championed by Baldwin's chief engineer, Ralph P. Johnson. Rather than pile all the power onto one massive set of connected wheels, a duplex splits the effort between 2 separate pairs of cylinders, each driving its own group of wheels, all bolted to one rigid frame. Done right, it eased the pounding hammer blow that heavy driving wheels punish the rails with at speed. To build something the world had never laid eyes on, the Pennsylvania pooled the talents of 4 heavyweights, its own Altoona Works, Baldwin, the American Locomotive Company, and Lima. From coupler to coupler, the finished S1 ran 140 feet and 2.5 inches, exceeding the span of some bridges and roughly doubling the length of the largest engines, then hauling trains. Engineers labeled its wheel layout 6446, and it stood alone. 6 wheels up front to lead, then 2 clusters of 4 driving wheels apiece, each one 7 feet across, followed by 6 trailing wheels, the whole assembly locked into one uncompromising frame. Those 7-foot drivers ranked as the tallest ever fitted beneath a locomotive of the kind. Under the sleek skin, the S1 brimmed with ambition. Its boiler was the largest the Pennsylvania ever built. Some 660 square feet of direct heating surface fed through a broad Belpaire firebox, running nearly the full body of the engine and supplying a set of enormous cylinders on either flank. The numbers invited comparison with the mightiest machine of the age. Union Pacific's legendary Big Boy was the giant everyone pictured when they thought of steam, yet the Big Boy was articulated, hinged in the middle to bend through curves, and even it measured only about 132 feet. The S1 stretched past 140 with no hinge at all, its boiler nearly as massive as the Big Boy's, its drawbar horsepower reportedly higher still, around 7,200 horsepower on tap. Even its bed plate set a record, a single cast steel casting, the largest ever poured for a locomotive. Behind the engine trailed the heaviest tender ever coupled to a steam locomotive, a rolling reservoir of coal and water scaled to feed that colossal firebox. Fully loaded with its tender, the whole machine tipped past 1 million pounds. Within the cab, crews faced a wall of gauges and controls fit for an ocean liner. Every choice chased velocity. Rock steady at 100 miles per hour, able to drag heavy consists without laboring. The bill came to $669,780, enough money to assemble a whole squadron of ordinary engines. But the S1 was never intended for the ordinary. It was constructed to embody the future, a device so cutting-edge it appeared bounded by nothing except the rails beneath it. And still, for all that bulk and brawn, the locomotive's finest quality concealed a gathering crisis. A stiff, inflexible frame destined to overwhelm the very world it aimed to master. What made the S1 mighty was exactly what doomed it. Measuring 77 feet and change from pilot to trailing truck, its rigid frame outstretched most houses. This was the deliberate trade the designers had made. An articulated engine could pivot around a bend, but that flexibility introduced a wobble the Pennsylvania judged unsafe at the speeds it wanted, so the S1 was built as one solid, unbending girder of steel. Down a straight line, that translated to steadiness at blistering speeds. But the railroads of America aren't infinite ribbons of iron. They bend and wind, above all around stations and switching yards. The S1's frame permitted a mere 2¼ inches of sideways give, hardly wider than a man's thumb. That sliver was meant to let the wheels ease sideways through a bend, yet it fell hopelessly short of the cramped angles defining most routes. Almost half the engine's mass, 47%, bore down through its driving wheels, the remainder distributed over its colossal 6-wheel trucks. In theory, this held the locomotive level, but in the real world, it left weaker grip, pinning the drivers to the steel. And that shortage of grip bred a second, uglier problem: wheel slip. Open the throttle too hard, and the great drivers could break loose and spin, and when they slipped at 30 or 40 miles per hour, the sudden runaway motion could inflict real mechanical damage on the machine itself. On paper, the S1 read like the future, long, low, and commanding. On the rails, that very magnitude turned into a burden. The unyielding wheelbase battled every curve, grinding against the track, and its modest lateral motion hardware simply couldn't keep up. Every bend threatened a derailment or savage wear, and the engine's full might could only surface on those uncommon runs of dead-straight mainline. The S1 was made to fly, but it couldn't yield to the world it set out to master. Along the wide-open run linking Chicago and Crestline, the S1 at last had space to bear its claws. Boiler thundering and throttle thrown open, it ripped down the line at a confirmed 100.97 miles per hour, a figure that briefly placed it among the immortals. Those 7-foot drivers spun until they dissolved into a blur, the huge pistons hammering out upward of 76,000 pounds of tractive effort. This wasn't velocity for the thrill of it. The S1 could tow a train of 1,350 tons, an accomplishment that shamed the plodding workhorses of the era, and it earned its keep on the Pennsylvania's proudest name trains, running as the muscle behind services like the General and the Trailblazer. It was no showpiece gathering dust either. Assigned to the Fort Wayne Division and stabled at the Crestline engine house, the S1 averaged better than 10,000 miles a month and pulled its weight straight through the strain of the Second World War, when the Trailblazer alone carried many times the passengers of the celebrated Broadway Limited. Yet each mile exacted a brutal toll. A single trip swallowed 48,000 pounds of coal and drank down 36,000 gallons of water, roughly a backyard pool's worth, drained and refilled on every outing. The S1 didn't merely burn fuel, it devoured resources with an appetite no rival engine could rival. Every surge of speed brought fresh strain, extra upkeep, more expense. The figures spoke plainly. For all its horsepower, the S1 was a money pit rolling on wheels, a machine that could outpace nearly anything except its own hunger. The S1's horizon shrank down to one lone stretch, Chicago to Crestline, Ohio. 283 miles of nearly aerostraight rail turned into its whole universe. Nowhere else across the Pennsylvania Railroad could the behemoth operate. That rigid frame, overlong for the average curve, locked it out of the winding lines lacing the rest of the network. Turntables, the essential rotating decks used to swing engines around, ran too short to cradle its full reach. Yard tracks and station throats laid out for smaller, nimbler machines made the S1 creep along or take the long way around. There was no dodging it. The engine was fenced in by its own dimensions, and while other locomotives could roam the whole system, the S1 was a prisoner of the single corridor built wide enough to hold it. Across roughly 6 years, it rumbled to and fro between Chicago and Crestline, forever living on time it had borrowed. Each pass chewed at the rails and taxed the switches. Dispatchers and shop hands learned to accommodate its quirks, but the S1's shortcomings grew impossible to ignore. Rival engines could be reassigned, rerouted, or cycled through the system. The S1 had no other place to be. Behind the scenes, the railroad had already moved on. As early as 1940, its attention had shifted to a smaller, more practical duplex, the 4444T1, meant to do much the same work on an engine that could actually navigate the system. On May 5, 1946, a Fort Wayne engineman's timebook logged the S1 pulling into Chicago, and that run stands as one of its last. For a while, the railroad even weighed saving it, setting the record breaker aside as a monument. But money was tight and getting tighter, and sentiment lost. 3 years later, in 1949, the Pennsylvania Railroad discreetly signed the order to break it up. No fanfare, no send-off, just the unhurried, wordless labor of reducing a legend to scrap. The engine built to be tomorrow had simply run out of railroad. Here is the strange part, though. The men who ran the S1 didn't hate the machine. Many actually admired the way it rode. Its sheer mass and inertia ironed out the bumps and smoothed the surging that plagued other duplex engines, giving the crew an oddly gentle ride atop all that violence. Engineers in crisp uniforms hauled themselves into the cab full of wonder, and for a time, the wonder held. But admiration and trust are not the same thing, and the S1 asked for both. It asked for faith in a machine that didn't always repay it. Crews traded hushed remarks about the long, rigid wheelbase, about how it wrestled every curve, about the ever-present danger of the wheels breaking loose the moment the throttle swung wide. Some dubbed it the Queen Mary, regal yet stranded on American rails. Others, less kind, branded it 140 feet of trouble. And here lies the truth that surprises people. No rulebook ever forbade the S1. No formal decree came down from the Pennsylvania Railroad's leadership. No union notice ever blacklisted its number. and yet the outcome landed the same. Crews traded away assignments to steer clear of it. Dispatchers quietly reshuffled their rosters, handing the S1 a run only when no other engine could cover it. The legend outran the train itself. Stories of the locomotive touching 140, even 150 miles per hour. Whispered tales of it blowing past the world steam record of 126 miles per hour that Britain's Mallard had set in 1938. Some even claimed it drew a speeding fine on the Fort Wayne line. But those numbers lived in newspaper headlines and barroom talk, not in operating logs. In sober truth, the S1's best documented run barely cleared 100.97 miles per hour. The rest was hearsay, smoke, and the jittery laughter of men who'd sooner be somewhere else. In the end, it wasn't a broken part that closed the S1's story, but a broken confidence. Once the people meant to run a machine stop believing in it, its ending is already written. The S1 was never formally outlawed, only quietly and firmly abandoned. And its lessons did not die with it. The T1 locomotives that followed inherited the duplex idea, and though they were smaller and better suited to the system, they too wrestled with wheel slip until the diesel arrived and swept the whole grand experiment aside. By the late 1940s, the Pennsylvania had resolved to dieselize its western passenger runs, and the age of the giant steam machine was effectively over. Innovation can dazzle, but it is reality that draws the boundaries. The S1 did not come up short on ambition. It came up short because the world around it would not bend to fit. Even today, a breakthrough only counts if it can run on the tracks we actually have. Progress is not invention alone. It is the art of adapting. What is your take?